A very good morning to you and many thanks for joining us on New Dawn. It is 6 a.m. in Nairobi, Kenya on this Friday, the 12th of July, 2024. Many thanks for joining us on the broadcast this morning. My name is Michelle Ngele Odhiambo. We're glad you could join us. We'd like to hear where you are watching us from this morning. Do speak to us on X at K24 Tv. The hashtag is New Dawn. You can also speak to us on our SMS feedback line 21222 as we give you a look at the top stories making headlines this morning. Top on the agenda is that cabinet acts by President William Ruto. With the country being in turmoil for over 4 weeks, the youth rising to reject the finance bill and the push for good governance. The cabinet has been dissolved by the president, with Ruto promising a broad-based and inclusive executive and corruption purge in government. A look at the front page of the People Daily there says, "Good riddance, shone the door." Amidst the cries of Kenyans who lost their brave children, speaking against the insolence of his regime, President William Ruto fires his cabinet, raising queries of his future at State House. That story continues on pages 2 to 6 of the paper, but we have pictures there of the cabinet secretaries that have been shown the door, all except Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, who also is the Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary. And I'd like to get your thoughts as this move by President William Ruto raises public debate on the future of his cabinet. What are your thoughts on the president's move to dissolve his cabinet? Speak to us on X. A look at the front page of the Standard newspaper says, "People Power." And that picture there of President William Ruto, I don't know what you make of the look on his face when he was delivering that speech and the walk back after he finished delivering that speech. But with a cabinet of cronies and political backers, Gen Z and observers are watching on who will be dropped or brought on board as the country weighs to see whether the president will keep his word for an all-inclusive, broad-based executive. And a look at the front page of the Daily Nation says, "Why they had to fall." So President Ruto fired all but one of his cabinet secretaries as he yielded to pressure from young Kenyans protesting against uproar and taxes. And while he hopes the move will help cool the heat in the country, it will no longer be business as usual, with his every step and decision now under sharp scrutiny. We'll be taking a look at that picture, the Daily Nation going very big on that report, about 6 pages detailing why these cabinet secretaries had to be shown the door as a result of public pressure by Gen Zs and the country at large. We'll be looking at that and much more in a lot more detail. But first, let's begin with the news making headlines this morning. President Ruto has dissolved the Kenya Kwanza cabinet, sparing only the offices of the Prime Minister and Deputy President. The decision follows pressure to remove officials who have failed to achieve their mandates. Principal secretaries will temporarily manage the ministries until a new cabinet is appointed. And as Maria Mujahid reports, the government has pledged additional measures, indicating a possible further shake-up to address inefficiencies.
In a departure from his usual speeches with trusted allies, President William Ruto walked in alone and dropped a bombshell. The cabinet of President William Ruto stands dissolved, together with Attorney General Justin Muturi.
Given to me by Article 1521 and 1525B of the Constitution and Sections 12 of the Office of the Attorney General's Act, decided to dismiss with immediate effect all the cabinet secretaries and Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, of the Cabinet of Kenya.
The government functions and services will, however, continue under the principal secretaries.
During this process, the operations of government will continue uninterrupted under the guidance of principal secretaries and other relevant officials.
The head of state also announced that Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi will remain in their positions.
Except the Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Secretary and Secretary for and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs. And of course, the office of the Deputy President is not affected in any way.
The pressure to fire the cabinet has been mounted by the Gen Z, who have called for the head of state to dissolve his cabinet. The pressure is, however, to the chagrin of President Ruto, who hailed his cabinet for their contributions.
I will be announcing additional measures and steps in due course.
The president now says he's ready to engage the youth as he directs the formation of a multi-sectoral forum for dialogue.
I will immediately engage in extensive consultations across different sectors and political formations and other Kenyans, both in public and private, with the aim of setting up a broad-based government that will assist me in accelerating and expediting the necessary, urgent, and irreversible implementation of the program that we have, including other radical measures and programs to deal with the burden of debt, to explore raising domestic resources and revenues, expanding job opportunities, eliminating wastage and unnecessary duplication of a multiplicity of government agencies, and slaying the dragon of corruption.
21 cabinet secretaries have been dismissed, with 50% of advisors also expected to be sacked as part of the changes in Ruto's administration. Mariam Jahid, K24, Nairobi.
Most of the cabinet secretaries dismissed by President William Ruto were carrying out their daily duties and aware of the impending announcement Thursday afternoon. Some were at the Kenya School of Government, where Head of Public Service Felix Koskei and Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi read a riot act moments before President William Ruto delivered the blow. Martin Opio looks at the final moments of the shortest cabinet in Kenya's history.
At the inaugural National Development Implementation Committee at the Kenya School of Government, led by Prime Cabinet Secretary, the Cabinet Secretaries, unaware of their impending fate, were busy discussing ways to serve Kenyans better.
So let me begin by requesting that we all be upstanding to observe a minute's silence in honor of all those who lost their lives during the past 2 weeks.
The session, which included principal secretaries, began with a minute of silence dedicated to those who lost their lives during the Gen Z demonstrations. Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi reiterated the time to take care of the interest of Kenyans is now.
They have called us out with a particularly strong message to the government that they are not feeling us. In some instances, we gave them the ammunition to fight back by showing off our opulence, maybe corruption, and wasteful use of public resources. Essentially, they are pointing out how insensitive we are to the impact of our decisions on the well-being of our people in the face of difficulties arising from domestic and external shocks.
For over 3 weeks, demonstrators have shaken the government, demanding that President William Ruto dismiss the entire cabinet for incompetency. Principal secretaries admitted that Gen Zs have a valid reason to take to the streets.
We must all strive to win the hearts and trust of the people in the remaining period by rolling up our sleeves and going back to work for them. The moment is here for us to deliver the envisaged benefits of the better pillars of the people.
Some of the cabinet secretaries had been quoted making disparaging remarks to the public, but Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi reminded them of the importance of proper engagement with Kenyans just moments before the axe fell.
We must work together to build better relations between Parliament, constitutional commissions, county governments, and above all, with the people of Kenya. The events of the past 2 weeks have taught us important lessons. We must listen more, communicate better, and support His Excellency the President to deliver on his promises to the people. This, ladies and gentlemen, should be our mantra going forward.
Utterances that enraged Kenyans had become the norm.
Kenya haitaendelea kwa kuweka sufuria kwa kichwa. Sasa ukishinda kutoka asubuhi mpaka jioni, bei ya mafuta imeongezeka, si uchipe kisima yako.
Accountability within government was highlighted.
Accountability remains a cornerstone of our mandate. As public servants, we are trustees on behalf of the people of Kenya, and we remain accountable to the people of Kenya. Our actions and decisions must always reflect this responsibility.
Mining Cabinet Secretary Salim Mvurya, now former, attending a forum on state of mining in the country Thursday morning, was unaware that the resolutions reached with mining stakeholders would be implemented by his principal secretaries in his absence.
We promised the country and all Kenyans that we'll go to do reforms. And part of the reforms that we committed to was to make sure that Kenya has a reliable mining data.
Last week, President William Ruto led the final cabinet meeting with the now dismissed team. Many of the resolutions focused on Gen Z demonstrations, with the cabinet praising the police for their conduct despite reported atrocities. What will change in the new cabinet? All eyes are now on President William Ruto. Will some of those sacked make a comeback, or will the country see new faces at the helm of various ministries? Martin Opio, K24 TV, Nairobi.
Show of extravagance, wastage of public resources by leaders, eventually leading to uproar by Gen Z youth, has pushed President Ruto to dance to their tune. The president has taken Kenyans down memory lane 19 years ago when the late President Mwai Kibaki fired his entire cabinet. And as our reporter Linda Koskei tells us, Ruto seems to be following in the footprints of the late President Kibaki in a bid to restore public confidence in his government.
In accordance with the powers conferred upon me under the Constitution of Kenya, I have directed that the offices of all ministers and all assistant ministers become vacant.
In similar words to those the late Mwai Kibaki used when he fired his cabinet, President Ruto also said,
in line with the powers given to me by Article 1521 and 1525B of the Constitution and Sections 12 of the Office of the Attorney General's Act, decided to dismiss with immediate effect all the cabinet secretaries and Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, of the Cabinet of Kenya.
The only difference is that Kibaki dissolved his cabinet before the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution. Kenya has been grappling with the same problems, including corruption, duplication of roles and government wastage.
Eliminating wastage and unnecessary duplication of a multiplicity of government agencies and slaying the dragon of corruption.
Cabinet secretaries had been blamed for showcasing extravagant lifestyles. This saw Kenyans call for a lifestyle audit of government officials.
Bilioni 20 kwa miaka 2 unatoa wapi? Imefika kwa wakati wa Kenya lazima waulize viongozi hii pesa umetoka naye wapi?
With the cabinet dissolution, it showcases the impact of the Gen Z protests that rocked the country. Kibaki suspended parliament and dismissed his cabinet following the defeat of a constitutional referendum that was seen as a vote of no confidence in his regime. Questions now abound on whether the members of parliament will perform their duties dutifully when they vet the new CSs who will be appointed and whether the PSs will be up to task in the meantime.
Asanteni sana.
Linda Koskei, K24 TV.
Meanwhile, Kenyans across the country have lauded the president for dissolving his cabinet. They have further urged him to consider appointing technocrats into public office as opposed to politicians, further asking the president to deal with corruption to restore lost confidence from the public.
I think the way that I'm feeling is that it's a move to co-opt the movement and to placate us and to try and tell us that, like, Ndoyo, I'm doing something. Because if it was somebody to do something, he would have done it a long time ago, you know. And so for me, I'm like, okay, we may dissolve, then what's next? What is his plan? Or is he just saying that kutuambia Ndoyo bas nimefanya?
And basically dismissing the entire cabinet, I have some reservations with that because he can't leave a vacuum, yet there were running issues in this country. Number one, I feel like on the security docket, you would have left Mr. Kindiki and the rest.
Mr. President, we are only urging you that don't stop at cabinet. Please, Mr. President, we also have county governments who are corrupt. Please calm down. Fight this corruption. We have state parastatals. We have state organs. We have even our constituencies participating in corruption. The biggest monster, Mr. President.
Hakuna mtu atarudishwa hata moja. Kwa sababu hiyo kiburi ilikuwa imezidi zaidi hasa ya Murkomen. Ya tatu, ningesema akimaliza ya mawaziri akuje kwa ya PS. PS wote waende nyumbani. Kwanza aanzie Pelion na TUM. Wamecheza na wanande sana.
Penye huko kwanza goteka. Sisi tunakutambua kama wana Jay-Z. Kile umefanya ni kumaanisha ya kwanza umetusikiza wa Kenya, na ya pili kile umefanya vizuri sana kuvuta watu, manake hakuna kitu walikuwa wanafanya. Ya pili kitu walikuwa wanafanya ambayo walikuwa wanaongea tu, wanatembea na magari kubwa, kuweka mabendera mbele na kuongoza matumbo zao. Walikuwa wanaongoza matumbo zao wakipeleka pesa kwa manyumba zao, wakiendelea zile magari kubwa. Leo hii president wa Kenya ujua wamekupongeza sana na wamefurahia, na mali kama mimi mwana bodaboda nimekufurahia sana.
Office ya Prime Cabinet Secretary, which is unconstitutional. That one should also go. And the second thing I want to talk about is that we want to request you, Mr. President, because now we can see that you are on our side and you are moving with us. I want you to request you to send all state officers who are corrupt to parking. And let IECC start its job of investigating these people. We want Kenya to go back to where it was. We want Kenya to be led by people who really knows where Kenya wants to go.
Panga imeshika ministers wengine wenye walikuwa competent, yani incompetent kama kina Murkomen, wamepitiza watu kama kina Kindiki walikuwa wanafanya kazi yao vizuri. Kina Duale, rais, tunataka kukuomba like kama watu kama hawa at least wape position their community to be happy. Walikuwa wanafanya kazi. Na nataka kusema kwa Murkomen, hata asipewa hata position hata kidogo, baridi mchape nje.
Going forward, we've seen that and we have a records of those corrupted government officials. We need now prosecution to take place. We need Japheth Koome to go home. And governors, get ready. We are coming for you. We are done with the national government, despite the fact we know that there are some things that we still need to discuss. Governors, get ready. We are coming for you.
Sema ya kwamba bado mapambano yapo. Kwa sababu mwanzo niseme ya kwamba yeye mwenyewe aliwahi kusema ya kwamba mawaziri wake wanamuangusha. Na kwa hivyo hata kama alikuwa amewaweka hawakuwa wanafanya kazi vile. Kwa hivyo amefanya tu kuwaondoa, lakini wa Kenya tusisahau ya kwamba mwanzilishi wa wimbo, wale ambao wanaongoza katika ule wimbo wao wanajibu kulingana na kiongozi wa wimbo. Kwa hivyo hata kama amewatoa hawa wao sio shida kubwa. Shida kubwa ni anaye solo ile wimbo.
Amewafuta ndio. Isiwe ni ya kufurahisha watu tu. Ila ningemuomba kama kunaye ambaye amefanya kazi vizuri kidogo anaweza muangalia amrejeshe. Lakini asichukue watu wa aina ile. Maana asifanye kitu watu wasichaguliwe wanasiasa katika positions za mawaziri. Maana wanasiasa ndio hawezi fanya kazi, wanataka kujipendekeza kwa wananchi.
Maombi nilokuwa nayo siku zote Manake nchi ilikuwa ya zama. Sasa Mungu ametukubalia maombi yetu, hayo cabinet imefutwa, walete watu ambao watatusaidia. Tuna watoto wamesoma university, hawana chochote, wako tu kwa nyumba. Let us be fair, na Mwenyezi Mungu ndio atatutilia baraka. Asante.
Wengi wao hawa mawaziri kama wale walikuwa waziri wa agriculture alikuwa ametuletea fertilizer ya mchanga. Jameni, tufanye biashara, tufanye ukulima, na si Kenya, nchi yetu ni ya ukulima. Tufanye ukulima na fertilizer bure kabisa. Kwa hivyo amefanya vizuri kutoa watu kabisa wote, ndio wakae chini. Sasa tukae chini kama nchi, tafute ni kina nani wanaweza kufaa kwa hizo viti sa cabinet secretaries, ndio Kenya iweze kuendelea tena.
Watoto wetu wapatiwe makazi. Wacha kusema umewatafutia watoto wetu makazi huko ugaibuni. Sisi hatutaki watoto wetu waende ugaibuni. Tunataka watoto wetu wafanye kazi hapa nchi yetu ya Kenya, tuweze kukuza uchumi yetu ya Kenya. Namba 2, naongelea kuhusu ile finance bill yenye ilipita. Ulisema haujasahihi. Hiyo finance bill is still very much alive. As a former legislator, mimi najua kabisa hiyo finance bill iko alive pale mbunge until and unless kutoke mheshimiwa mmoja akuje aulete motion ya kufutilia mbali hiyo finance bill, bado iko alive.
The cracks within the Azimio coalition and the adamant stand by Gen Z against national dialogue continue to stir doubt about the much-anticipated multi-sectoral forum announced by President William Ruto for next week. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka has emphasized the need for the opposition to unite on their stand regarding the dialogue. And as Milia Kisienya reports, the divided Azimio leaders believe the opportunity for dialogue has long passed.
As President William Ruto sets the pace to align with the demands raised by the Gen Z movement, the much-anticipated national dialogue set for next week faces significant hurdles. The multi-sectoral forum meeting, which aims to involve the opposition leaders, religious leaders and a group of youths, is already showing cracks. This division stems from the Gen Z faction, which remains adamant that they want no part in the dialogue, despite the opposition's purported agreement with the president.
Hakukuwa na nafasi wakati huo. Tulikuwa tumeongea na kinara wetu Mheshimiwa Raila, tukimaliza mambo ya kutilia saini IBC Amendment Act, basi tutafute namna, tutafute wakati mwingine ikiwa mazingira yatakuwa ya kuboresha mambo haya, tuyazungumze, tuone tuyazungumza kivipi. Lakini inaonekana nilipotoka kulikuwa msukumo fulani, nadhani hao Kenya Kwanza, msukumo fulani mpaka wakaleta hali ya kutatanisha kwa nchi.
Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, Azimio principle, has maintained a divided stance on the dialogue, stating it lacks clear intentions.
I repeat, the time for the African lion to arise is now.
Musyoka made these comments while meeting Pan-Africanist youthful leaders in Nairobi.
Nobody is averse to dialogue, but dialogue must be meaningful. You heard from the young student from Strathmore, Audrey, who says there should be preconditions before we go into dialogue. The preconditions they want to see are justice for Rex, justice for these people who are killed, and the people who brought about the death of these young Kenyans. They want to see action taken against them, taken to court, the police officers who are shooting people dead. They want to see action, right? So the immediate thing now is justice. Justice for the victims.
However, as the cracks within Azimio continue to create a stir, Azimio leader Raila Odinga appears to have given the go-ahead for the dialogue. The question remains whether he will pursue talks with his divided fellow principals.
I spoke to a coalition leader on my way here, the Honorable Raila Odinga, and I'm happy he's coming to talk to these young leaders. And one thing we're in agreement, in fact, he's waiting for me, because we need to be able to get a position of Azimio la Umoja One Kenya.
So far, Azimio principals who have distanced themselves from the dialogue include now Kenya leader Martha Karua, Eugene Wamalwa and Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni. The multi-sectoral forum is set to begin on Monday next week and is expected to conclude on Saturday of the same week. President Ruto emphasized the importance of the forum, stating that it will propose the way forward for the country. Milia Kisienya, K24 TV.
But what by Milia Kisienya brings us to a break on New Dawn. When we come back, a look at the headlines and us making headlines on the dailies on this Friday, the 12th of July. To stay with us.
When it's a Saturday, there's only one entertainment show in East and Central Africa.